Yeah.
Well, interestingly, I talked to my professor, weirdly enough, we're doing Rear Window in class right now. So I got to watch it both for this and the class.
Yes, that was a coincidence.
Yeah, that's the first. I didn't even plan on that. That's the first time that's ever happened. And I talked to him after the class. I'm like, what do people see in Hitchcock? Because I've always been a Hitchcock skeptic since I've watched two of his movies. And I think he said, people praise Hitchcock's use of filmmaking language and his mastery of providing and taking away information. And he also said, on a thematic level, he deals with themes of voyeurism and also gender roles. The subtext of his movies is problematic, but the roles that the women play in his movies are unique, at least of the time.
That is true, I guess.
And I'll grant him that, but but it's in a case where I don't think. Well, it's not. I don't think it's the Tarantino issue where I don't think Hitchcock realizes or doesn't care about subtext. I don't think it's that.
That can't possibly be true because so many of his movies have psychological and sexual overtones. He knows.
Yeah, he knows. Yeah, he doesn't really explore them all that well.
Yeah, but this was the 50s. I don't know if people were ready for that at the time.
Based on what I saw.
There were fascinating movies that came out.
Well, based on what I saw from Vertigo, no.
The 50s are a very big blind spot for me. I will say that up front. Okay. Also, to be clear, I too am a Hitchcock skeptic. I've only seen 3 Hitchcock movies, which were the 2 we watched for this week, and Psycho. I actually do like Psycho quite a bit, but...
you haven't seen Psycho, I should probably...
We should watch that at some point.
I should probably... Here's the thing about it, Tyler. Touch of Evil and Vertigo came out in roughly the same year.
Oh. This is the Hack Fraud Show. We are back. It's Alfred Hitchcock Week, and we are so glad to be doing this.
I think...
we're a lot more energized than we were last week, I will say that.
Yeah, I know. We seemed oddly defeated last week, which is really weird considering what we were talking about.
And we liked both of the movies last week.
Loved Wells.
This was not... at least we didn't watch the trial.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about it. Is it unfair to compare Hitchcock to Wells? Because they're both filmmakers of roughly the same era.
Yeah.
They both kind of make the same genre of movies at times.
Well, here's the thing. Hitchcock worked firmly within the studio system.
Yeah.
Hitchcock was really, I think that Hitchcock was even able to kind of make these films, which I feel like were probably pretty audacious for the time. He was able to make these. He was able to make these for major studios in the prudish times of the 1950s, and Psycho was very controversial when it came out, and he was kind of a maverick in some ways. The famous thing about Psycho is that he shot it on the cheap with his TV crew.
Yeah, he was coming off of TV when he made them.
Yeah, in black and white and everything. But Vertigo and Rear Window are much more kind of, big budget Technicolor studio pictures. Yeah. You got James Stewart in there.
Big audacious sets and things like that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know if Hitchcock... Wells is really not a good comparison point for anybody because he was such a unique voice and doing such unique things. But I don't know. Like I say, Hitchcock was very much a studio filmmaker and a Hollywood filmmaker. He was more concerned with making entertaining movies, I think.
Well, I think one of the things my professor stated was that Hitchcock was not critically respected when he was actually making movies. He was a popular.
Oh, okay.
He made money. He made money. People went to go see his movies. He kind of got to make the movies he wanted to make.
Yeah.
But he was a popular filmmaker. He didn't get the critical respect that we give him today until after he died.
Yeah.
More likely.
Well, he never won an Oscar. He did get an honorary award at some point toward the end of his career.
Why didn't Hitchcock ever win an award? And I say, well, he didn't try. Why? For the same reason people like J.J. Abrams don't win awards. That's not what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I forgot. I also watched the 39 Steps this week, so I have seen 4 Hitchcock movies.
The 39 Steps, because it's been a while since I've seen that.
I kind of enjoyed it. It's just a fun little caper movie that that kind of has like flashes of his later work in it. I don't know. It's fine. It's kind of lightweight, not particularly revelatory. But the lead actor is pretty cool. And the leading lady is also very fun. It's a fun story. It's got some good studio or classic Hollywood filmmaking in it. I mean, that movie came out in like what, 35?
I think yeah, mid to late 30s.
Yeah. So that movie's fun, and it's only like 88 minutes. So.
You're right. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I think I've heard a lot of respect for like early. There's also respect for early like pre-Hollywood Hitchcock when he was working in Britain.
Well, it's fascinating because like I think the Vidiots talked about this with like Bergman, but like Hitchcock made like 30 movies before you even get to like the all-time classics.
Oh yeah. Wow. Hitchcock was a genius. He was one of those. He just kept on making. This is complete contrary to Wells, where he only made like a handful of movies. Hitchcock just made. Didn't he make like over 50 by the time he was done?
It certainly seems that way. Like just looking at his filmography on like his Wikipedia page, it's like.
It's just it's all inspiring.
Yeah. So I've seen 39 Steps, and then Rear Window and Vertigo both came out in the 50s, and then Psycho was 1960. I still need to see North by Northwest, which my friend tells me is a lot more entertaining than Vertigo.
I've heard good things about North by. Well, I've heard good things about a lot of Hitchcock movies, but none of it has seemed to come to pasture for me. Do we want to put our cards on the table?
I suppose. Should we start with Vertigo or Rear Window?
Do you want to start on Vertigo, Reed?
Let's start with Rear Window, because...
Okay. All right.
Let's do that.
Okay. Rear Window stars James Stewart, and it takes place on this single set which is all about like this guy stuck in a wheelchair after an accident while doing photography because he's a photographer for, I think, is it a magazine?
Yeah, a magazine or a newspaper, something. Yeah.
And he is now kind of stuck just looking out his rear window, and the set they built, there's all of these massive, convenient windows where you can look into other people's lives.
Yeah. It's a great setup. Like, he's just, like, staring out this huge, like, wall-to-wall window, just looking out at all his neighbors, and just kind of seeing their lives and, like, entertaining himself that way.
Yeah, he is indulging himself in classic voyeurism.
Yes.
And the people who meet him in his apartment tell him that.
The obvious metaphor here being film watching and film viewing, because as you say, Hitchcock was very interested in voyeurism and the voyeuristic nature of film. I took a class last semester where we watched Psycho, and like that was like the whole topic about like the gaze of the camera and everything.
My professor really pointed at that. Like, he showed the scene where that he's watching his girlfriend getting into the apartment, and the way it's lit, there's like this weird light. They cut to him, and he's sitting there, and there's this weird white light coming towards him, and it almost looks like he's sitting in a cinema.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And so that's neat. That's all well and done. But what is our issue with Rear Window?
Well, here's what
It's not front window.
Okay. My thing is, okay, I didn't know very much about this movie going in.
Neither did I.
So, I mean, I knew like it had something to do with voyeurism. So what I assumed was that this movie was going to be about like the dangers of voyeurism and like a cautionary tale about voyeurism and like projecting your thoughts and desires and feelings onto other people's lives.
Yes.
I guess.
And an interesting thing I found is that he finds looking into other people's lives genuinely more interesting than the life he has right in front of him.
Yeah.
With the model.
True. And that's interesting. And that's all very well and good on paper. All could be very interesting stuff. Here's the thing. The climax of the movie, like, okay, so what happens is Jimmy Stewart, like, sees, like, this guy whose wife is bedridden, and then she one day just disappears. And he sees things that lead him to believe that this guy has murdered his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole movie is, like, everybody, like, trying to persuade him that he's wrong and that he has no basis for this, and then, but, like, people kind of get sucked into, like, his whole obsession with this. But the thing is, he's right.
Yes.
He is proven right at the end of the movie. The guy comes over to his apartment, tries to kill him, pushes him out the window, and all that happens...
shockingly bad optical effect.
Yeah. But all that happens is, like, he breaks his other leg, and he's confined to the wheelchair for longer, and he's a hero, basically, because he figured out this murder case. His girlfriend, I assume they get married, because like there's this whole thing about how he doesn't want to marry her, but then like at the end they're just kind of sitting in the apartment, and it's like, what? Like, why is he being rewarded for being a really a very creepy guy?
Yeah, he is what, and the movie points out at the beginning what he is doing is creepy and like and bizarre, and people are always pointing out to him. Like at one point, like his model girlfriend shuts the blinds and says it shuts the blinds to make her. You pay attention, and she puts on a nightgown. She's like, "You pay attention to me. Stop looking out these windows."
Yeah,
and that's just dropped when it comes to the ending.
Yeah.
And like it seems like, and James Stewart really hasn't learned anything from any of this.
Yeah. Well,
nor as really the other characters.
It seems like Hitchcock was like, okay, I'm going to make a really interesting movie about voyeurism with a really great setup with
and a really great set. Like, that set is wonderful. It doesn't look like anything from reality, but goddammit, it looks great.
And here's something I noticed: Hitchcock is very good at like kind of first-person filmmaking and like putting you in the head of a character. Like almost all the shots we see of like the other people in the neighborhood in this movie are through the window, wide shots from Jimmy Stewart's perspective. There's like one point in the movie where they cut to like actual like medium close-ups of the people like in their own apartments. And
most see them as like wide up. It's just wide off as if we're looking through that window.
Yeah. Which is all great. And it seems like Hitchcock was like, okay, we're going to make all this interesting stuff. And then, like, when it came to the ending, he was like, nah, okay, we're just going to have, like, a Hollywood, like, we're just going to turn this into, like, a Hollywood thriller caper kind of thing.
I think maybe they just had a conversation like, well, Mr. Alfred, it'd be very unsatisfying if we got all this and it turned out there wasn't a murderer. So why not we make it? It's a murder case and we can give some good sensationalism.
Which is so strange because in Vertigo and Psycho, he feels no need for that. Those movies have like devastating endings. And
Vertigo goes all out on its main character. Like, if anything, well, actually, people criticize Vertigo because it's like, oh, James, we don't like James Stewart. We're supposed to like James Stewart.
Well, maybe not coincidentally, the last 20 minutes of Vertigo are by far and away the best part. But
yes.
But I don't know. Rear Window, I enjoyed it. It's very deliberately paced. I don't know what it is with Hitchcock and like just not wanting to move a plot along, but
it's because like Hitchcock is. I think we were talking about this. I think at one point in the video we're talking about this with J.J. Abrams. Is that like J.J. Abrams never wants you to be lost. He's always holding your hand, and Hitchcock does that through very different means. Like Hitchcock's very slow paced because he's constantly spoon feeding you information, and it's not through exposition but visually. Like there's like the opening shot where just like he goes through like the apartment and shows like a broken camera and like images from the accident and things like that. And that's all very hand-holding, very spoon. And that's spoon-feeding information for you. It's better than doing it through exposition, but that's still spoon-feeding information.
It's visual exposition, which is always better than, dialogue exposition, but
Hitchcock does it in a way that kills pace and is very distracting. Like we know, when we talked about, we talk about directors all the time that have very noticeable styles and call attention to themselves.
Yeah.
And when they do that, typically it's rather impressive, and it's something you want to notice.
Especially in Vertigo with the first time pioneered dolly shot to mimic the sensation one has with Vertigo.
Vertigo shots, you see.
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's very calling attention to us, but it's not really that impressive.
Yeah.
Nor does it really portray that much information, and that's all over Hitchcock. It's things
Still
like
cool.
He's constantly calling attention to himself, and it's kind of cool in a superficial way.
Yes.
But it doesn't really have anything thematic going on, at least in in moments where he does show off, and it's just genuinely not very impressive.
Well,
So it's just more of a special effect.
yeah.
Sort of like just having his dick on the table or something.
Well, what I've kind of realized is that, like, Hitchcock was clearly, like, very good at the craft of filmmaking. Like, he's one of those people, like, you know, our old friend David Fincher, who definitely knows, like, how to make a movie and is very, very good at it. But it seems like he focuses on that, like, almost at the expense of the characters and the story. Like,
Yes.
and, like,
Yes.
he seems to focus on the plot a lot more than on the story. There's a very important distinction there.
Yeah. Like, as he's constantly giving you information, but maybe not the right information. Maybe not what we need to have an emotional connection to things. Because, like, the information he gives is, like, in the superficial, like,
Right.
where's the car, where physical objects are in this universe.
Like, it barely
like, what a character feels.
it barely feels like any of these characters have, like, any kind of inner life, like, at all.
No.
Like, they're very two-dimensional. Like, James Stewart in Rear Window, like, really, he doesn't change. He doesn't learn anything. You know, he, maybe just, you know, maybe, like, I don't know, I would say that, like, he accepts, like, his girlfriend into his life, but, like, that only happens because she's kind of drawn into, like, his web of obsession with these other people. And maybe
he helps him out with his obsession.
Maybe that's the point, but Hitchcock doesn't do a very good job of communicating that is the point, if it is.
It plays like a Hollywood ending.
Yeah.
It plays like a typical Hollywood climax and ending.
Which, is he using that to satirize the Hollywood ending?
No.
Is he doing the adaptation thing? Yeah, probably not.
Hitchcock is a lot of things. He's not a satirist. So I think he's very much within, like, Hollywood tradition, and that's not a bad thing. But it seems like Hitchcock sets the seeds for ideas that would transcend traditional Hollywood filmmaking, traditional Hollywood storytelling. But in the case of Rear Window, he just devolves into that by the end.
Yeah.
Which I think makes it, while Rear Window is entertaining, it's ultimately frustrating for that.
Yeah.
So do we recommend, or do we have more things to say about Rear Window?
I really don't have much more to say. Like, I was entertained by it. I was rather disappointed, like, by just how conventional it ended up being in the end. I don't really understand why it's as acclaimed and beloved as it is, but boy howdy are we gonna further that idea with our next movie.
Oh yeah, I know. I think maybe people just genuinely like his visual exposition, and they I guess that in a world where shaky cam and, like, a lack of information has seemed to be taken over in lots of filmmaking, a director like Hitchcock, who locks down the camera and will show you everything in the scene and everything about that, that might seem just very refreshing and very honest.
Well, he's very good at, like, sorry, Reed, just 1 second. He's very good at, like, this kind of classical Hollywood form of filmmaking, and but I read that, like, maybe it's another thing where we're not, like, recognizing how innovative he was, because, like, everything about his style has been absorbed and, like, repurposed by New Hollywood and by modern cinema. I don't know, it says, like, I'm looking at, like, his Wikipedia article to, like, try and figure out what the big deal is, but it's like...
Wikipedia, the source of all the answers.
It says, like, his stylistic trademarks include the use of camera movement that mimics a person's gaze, and, like, he framed shots to maximize anxiety, fear, or empathy, and used innovative forms of film editing. But, like, I don't know, it feels like everything
even in the 50s, we've been doing that for a while.
It feels like everything he did was, like, furthered, like, you know, absorbed and done better by later filmmakers, and...
Yes.
I don't agree with the logic that, like, the first person to do it was the best.
Well, we need to recognize that they are the first to do it, and we need to recognize the importance of that. But I don't think you need to exactly say, yeah, this person was the best to utilize it.
Sure.
Like, Wells invented deep focus.
Yeah.
Is he the best to use it? Maybe not.
Well, I mean, those who are better than the first obviously come after, and then those who initially started are the best, therefore.
Well, that mostly works in terms of tradition. Like, you always need to recognize Hitchcock. Yeah. Hitchcock is worth studying. It's worth analyzing. But I don't think you need to hold him on a pedestal above all other filmmakers for being the first to do something.
Sure. Well,
okay.
What were you going to say from before?
I was going to say that I was going to ask and then follow up, but I was going to ask, are we done with Rear Window?
I guess we are.
we don't have really much else to say on it. I think Vertigo.
Okay, so
Alfred.
we are going to talk about a movie quote by Wells worse than Rear Window.
Did Wells say that?
According to Wikipedia.
No. Wells didn't like later Hitchcock. Like, these fans, he thought he just thought Vertigo was just awful. He just does not like the James Stewart Hitchcock movies.
Let's talk Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Vertigo.
Of all time.
Okay.
Best number one.
Yeah. Okay. So this movie, it's like top 5 American Film Institute best movies of all time. In the Sight and Sound poll one year, it displaced Citizen Kane as the best movie ever made by
Can I ask this question?
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. I cannot possibly fathom why. What is the big fucking deal? I don't understand. I don't like this movie at all.
I can understand why people like it, but Lord knows what the fuck is it doing in all these top 5 movies? I don't. What is the big? Is it because it invented the Vertigo shot?
One shot doesn't make your movie the greatest thing ever.
Is it because the weird Technicolor scene where James Stewart's head goes into the camera and keeps slipping out of existence?
That's awful. Okay.
I mean that part kind of reminded me of I think the third act. I think it was the 4th act of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the acid trip part. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I watching this again?
So Vertigo, highly acclaimed movie, often considered Hitchcock's best. Another big Technicolor spectacle starring James Stewart. This time as a detective who a traumatic accident involving his fear of heights leads him to retire. The death of his partner tries to save him from dangling on a ledge, and his partner falls to his death. That really messes him up. He retires.
Acrophobia.
Yes. And then
is it a friend of his that says, "Hey, I want you to"?
An old college friend of his contacts him and spins a yarn of that his claims his wife is being possessed by the spirit of a dead woman and wants James Stewart. His name is Scotty in this movie, but it's basically just James Stewart.
It's always James Stewart.
To follow his wife and figure out what's going on, which he does in many excruciating scenes of okay, Hitchcock, we fucking get it. He's following her. She's okay.
I don't think we're not over-exaggerating how Hitchcock shows every step in him following this
Yes.
Film. Not in a very interesting way, not in a very, thematically...
And it's not like he had to pad the runtime. This movie's over 2 hours long.
No.
It sort of makes all those car scenes in Dr. No much, much better.
I guess...
do you just love rear screen projection car shots, Hitchcock?
this is one thing I noticed about the movie this time, and like one thing I actually really liked. It's got a nice sense of its city. Like the Ernie's, the place, the little restaurant they go to, that's a real place. Like the Palace of the Legion of Honor, that's like a real museum. They go to real, like that big, grotesque, like neoclassical palace they pass near the end of the movie. That's a real place.
Yeah.
So it's got like a nice sense of city, and I can admire that, but Lord knows that doesn't make it any more entertaining.
But, like, here's the thing. Like, the first set of, like, James Stewart, like, following this woman, like, okay, I get that. Like, you're going to show us, like, okay, like, she's, you know, you introduce us to this whole idea of, like, Carlotta Valdez and, like, you know, all these things, like, you're showing us, like, making us think, okay, she really is being possessed by a dead woman. But then, like, he does it again and again, and it's like, okay, we get the point. Can we move on now? Like, I just don't understand. Like,
filmmakers would just cut past that stuff.
Like, and you know, this might feel like our talk about like 2001, where we're like, oh, just tighten up the editing. Like, come on, let's move it, let's go. But like, it feels unnecessary. It feels like he's just spoon feeding us. And like this time, like I didn't really feel this with Rear Window, but in this movie, I really felt like he was just really just going overboard with like how much he was like, okay, look at this, guys. Do you get it? Do you get it?
Like, yeah, I think this is where like Hitchcock, the populist filmmaker, comes out, because it's this idea that he doesn't actually respect his audience. He's like, well, if we cut ahead, they'll be lost. How will they know how we got there?
Right.
Which, and I know, I don't know why, and I know Hitchcock's better than this. Hitchcock is better than this. Rear Window is far more entertaining.
Yeah.
And I hear Notorious is far more entertaining. I hear Psycho is far more.
Psycho definitely doesn't like hold your hand nearly this much.
So do we have any other idea why this is Hitchcock's best? Is it because like it actually follows through in its theme?
I was going to say like this movie does actually, like I said, the last 20 minutes are the best part, because what happens is Scotty like eventually kind of falls in love with this woman that he's following, who it turns out is not actually this guy's wife. It's like this actress that he hired to like impersonate his wife so that he could bump her off and like be free for some reason that's never really explained.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
But like he sees what he thinks is this woman that he's fallen in love with fall to her death, and then later on re-encounters her. And then
in this hotel.
Yes. And then what happens is he becomes obsessed and like tries to mold her into the image of the woman that he thought she was. Like he buys her all the clothes that she wore like as this woman, makes her dye her hair and get it all done up to look like this Madeline is the name of the wife. And that's all great. Like, James Stewart goes really full creepy, and it's great. And it's a great little metaphor for, like, you know, male objectification of women and kind of like what the Hollywood studio system did to actresses.
Yes. It's Hitchcock, unlike in Rear Window, where he sets up ideas and then just drops them. The weird voyeurism of James Stewart is taken to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's, in a way, that's, like, actually very interesting.
Yes. The ending of this movie, I think, is actually quite brilliant. Like, they go to the church where he saw this other woman fall, and he tries to, like, conquer his fear of heights by climbing to the top, and then, like, it just destroys this whole thing that he just destroys their relationship, and she, too, falls to her death, and he's just left standing there on the top of the tower, just reeling, and then the movie just ends!
And it just ends, yeah.
Which is great! I just wish that the entire 118 minutes that had come before it were as good.
You get to that, you've gotten through so much Hitchcock hand moving. You're just head's just on the back of the chair going, okay.
Like the first half of this movie, it just takes forever. Like for them to just get to the point where like she falls and where they fall in love, that just takes so long, and it's. I don't know why it was not fun for me to watch at all. I did not enjoy myself during this movie.
But about the scenes like the woman who when he first wakes up, like the woman she's with.
Yeah.
What's her role? What the fuck does she do?
Oh yeah, I was about to bring that up. Like his friend Midge, who was like apparently his ex-fiancée or something. Why is she there? She's not there for any reason at all. She does nothing other than to like bring him to this guy who explains like who this Carlotta woman is. You don't need a whole character just to do that. Just to introduce you to another character who will give you information. Like, what?
It also raises the question, like, why don't you just go with her? She seems nice. What's wrong with her?
And also that
is it because she's gay?
Well, maybe
paints herself in the image of Carlotta. Even
maybe that's
a nice scene. I'll give it that.
Maybe that's the point of her. Maybe you've hit on something there, like to show you like he has this perfectly fine other woman, but he's so consumed by like the idea of this Madeline woman that like he just ignores this other potential relationship. But that's not explored well at all. So
Hitchcock spends so much time on like the James Stewart, like what's the name of the actress who plays like Carlotta
Kim Novak.
Kim Novak. Yeah. He spent so much time on that like him and the other woman that just there's just no time left over for that. There's just nothing there. Mm. Like everything we know about them is just pure subtext and poor exposition.
Yeah.
Like the beginning of this movie has a lot of like weirdly bad exposition. Like you have like at one point you have him and like the old college friend where they say how long. I think they say something to the effect of how long have we been friends and like how's the shipping business and things like that. And then there's like and then one point James Stewart says we were married once, weren't we? Or engaged once, weren't we? I'm like, oh, that's really clunky.
We were engaged once, weren't we?
yeah. I'm like, oh, wow, this is clunky.
Do you not remember?
Like that's like strangely clunky for even for Hitchcock. And I think Hitchcock's thought and clunky. I don't think is one of them. Maybe dated is a way to describe him.
I just don't get it. Like, I cannot possibly explain why this movie is as beloved and acclaimed as it is. If you held a gun to my head, I could not possibly tell you.
Especially when you look at what else we consider, like, the greatest films of all time. Like, what it beat Kane. Like, Kane, like, there's not a frame in Kane that is wasted. That movie is so tied into cinema history, and its innovations are just so numerous.
Yeah.
And not only are those innovations numerous, it does interesting things with those innovations.
Mm.
In a way, and I can't really think of any accolades like that I can put on Vertigo.
Let's look at the top 100, top 10 movies here. Like,
let's do that.
Okay, like Kane,
Yep.
Clearly.
We get it.
The Godfather, yeah. Absolutely. Casablanca, great example of like the Hollywood studio system. It's like the best kind of like movie that it's exemplative.
It's the perfect Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it's emblematic of a type of movie that Hollywood put out, and it's perfect. Raging Bull, I don't really get that either, but it's Scorsese, so at least there's something there.
I can understand like why people wouldn't love Raging Bull as one, but Raging Bull doesn't waste a frame. I think that movie is a fascinating character study.
Yeah.
And I don't think it doesn't have any of the bagginess and sometimes just bewildering terribleness of Vertigo.
Singing in the Rain, great movie.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
We'll bring you around on that.
We're going to have to rectify me not seeing Singing in the Rain.
Yeah. Gone with the Wind. It's problematic, sure, but like
highly influential.
Yes, very influential.
Highly influential
Hollywood
way
epic.
that Vertigo isn't.
Yes. Lawrence of Arabia, epic, great filmmaking, just astounding.
That's
Wizard of Oz is at number 10. Vertigo's at number 9, right below Schindler's List. Another great, just incredible film. It's just sandwiched between these just pillars of cinema, and it's like, what?
And here we are, we have an above-average example of Hitchcock.
I don't even know if it's really an above-average version of Hitchcock. I just don't like this movie. It's not pleasant to watch. it's
not that interesting until like the last 25
yeah,
minutes.
It's got some very interesting themes that are explored, I guess, a little more deeply than usual, but like still not really to like an adequate extent.
But at the cost of possible entertainment.
Yeah, and then the characters are. I never found the characters that interesting with the exception of Scotty, who has vertigo, but that's it.
Like, his vertigo is like his only character trait, and and then like he becomes obsessive at the end, and it's not really like. It seems like kind of out of left field, like how just creepy and manipulative he becomes in the last 25 minutes. It's like a completely different movie.
They do not set from the beginning, at least not nearly as well as they do with Rear Window.
Yeah, it's like, honestly, like the last 25 minutes of Vertigo are like a completely different movie. Like, it's completely different from everything they've been doing before it.
Exactly.
And
it's jarring.
It is jarring. It's so weird. Reed, are you sharing our thoughts here? Like, did you think this also, or...
Yeah, I was kind of disturbed by how creepy Johnny, quote unquote Johnny-O got.
I think, and I don't being disturbed by that character is not a bad thing. The problem is like that's not a character trait they set up very well.
Yeah,
set up at all.
Yeah.
See, like if there was some if that was established in the beginning on like why Midge didn't go through with the marriage because Johnny-O
really terrible
oh yeah, they never explained that either.
Like if they added that, I feel like that's a nice evolution. That's a nice character devolution rather.
Yeah, John, you're kind of right. Like, Hitchcock gives us a lot of information in this movie, but
it does very little with it.
But the information he leaves out is like almost more interesting, and like it seems like he left out like all the information that would like explain why we should care about any of this.
You're right. He gives us story. He gives us information about plot, but not information about character or story, which is what people, at least to modern audiences, that's where interest lies. Also, like, I don't think Hitchcock's visual style is all that. It's not really that provocative, nor
his camera. I found his camera work quite bland.
I like his compositions, but everything's kind of in a medium shot. He never gets very close. Like everything's kind of like this.
Or sort of stale.
Yeah,
I think
that creates like this distant feel, which is not intended.
Well, it might be intended, but I don't know. To me, it just felt like basic classical Hollywood filmmaking, and he didn't really do anything particularly interesting with it. I don't know. Maybe it looked better when it was released. I mean, this movie got like mixed reviews when it was initially released. It's really like built its kind of status.
As is all of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
There's lots of shots with like, ooh, that's a pretty shot. But that's to quote Clay Keller, that's like the least you can say about any movie. It's like, well, it was pretty.
Yeah.
So
really, I can't.
Except even that, I didn't think it was that impressive camera work wise.
There's some like on Vertigo, they overuse the fuck out of the Vertigo shot to the point of just redundancy, but
it almost becomes like a comedy.
I wish I could get that much entertainment out of
this. Mel Brooks made a spoof of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
High Anxiety, it's called. I haven't seen it, but...
maybe that's what we should watch when we come back. Hey, Mel Brooks week might be an interesting...
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
With Gene Wilder just...
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P.
So...
Your imagination.
I guess my last thing on Vertigo is I can't deny that there are interesting things in it. I can't deny I think its sense of San Francisco is interesting. Its sense of location is interesting.
Oh yes.
I like some of its acting, and I don't know. I think its pacing is bizarre.
Yeah.
In a way that was not intended. And I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm kind of just left baffled what Hitchcock was going for.
Yeah.
I'd say I recommend it mostly for the cinema history aspect, because you can't really be a proper cinephile without at least seeing this. especially considering it's considered one of the greatest films. So, and while I'm baffled by its placement there, I can't deny. Well, maybe other people should see and gather why the fuck it's there. Or maybe we're just wrong.
I mean, yes, do see it if you wonder why the fuck AFI gave it such high markings. But if you don't want to learn that, don't watch it. I don't think I can recommend this movie.
I can't in good conscience recommend this movie. Cinema history is like the only reason I could ever think of to want to watch this movie.
I can see people finding interesting things in it and finding engagement in it.
Yeah. Again,
I'm just certainly not one of those people.
Last 25 minutes, brilliant. Everything else, like, I could just throw out. I don't care. It's... God.
That's oddly my whole thing on Hitchcock, is that as much as people praise him, I've found mostly ambivalence in watching his movies.
Yeah.
I can never muster anger towards them, but I can never muster any liking for them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a personal failing of me, or maybe just because like Hitchcock is not nearly as evocative as some of the other greatest filmmakers of all time people talk about.
Well, that's Hitchcock Week. I don't know. The filmmaking in Psycho is much more interesting. I think Psycho is just a much more entertaining movie. It's got a lot of interesting things going on. We'll watch that eventually.
We should probably. I think we'll put like a B to be determined on our final thoughts on Hitchcock.
I guess.
Because we still have quite a lot of blank spots.
Yeah, I still need to see North by Northwest. You still need to see Psycho, and we'll figure it out. But as of right now, maybe
we'll just get angrier. Who knows?
As of right now, we are less than impressed. But okay, what's next week gonna be?
Well, how many? Like, what is it? Is it the 21st?
I wanted to go until the 21st. That would give us 2 more episodes for Summer of Filmmakers.
Wait. What happens on the 21st?
It's the first day of fall.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think it'd be best to end summer. I think it's a good idea to end Summer of Filmmakers in summer.
That's true.
Okay. Do you want to do one more, or do you want to end now and do something very pleasant next week?
We could. You know what? We could do Mel Brooks week.
No.
I don't really have any desire to do that.
Granted, there's honestly quite a lot of blank spots in being Mel Brooks.
Well, here's what we could do. You haven't seen Singing in the Rain, and we should fix that. I've never really been that high on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and now is a particularly apt time, and it's a musical.
So you want to do So we're just filmmakers and doing a musical?
I guess we could just do a week of musicals. They're both fun movies.
Well, we've done this before, Tyler.
Yes.
We've done this before. Remember, what could possibly go wrong with Charlie Chaplin?
That didn't turn out too bad.
This isn't the same. I've seen both these movies, and they're both delightful. I mean, my issues with Willy Wonka are for somewhat different reasons, but we could talk about that.
We'll see about that. Well, granted, Singing in the Rain has Pittsburgh's own Gene Kelly. I mean, how bad could it be?
I still want to force you to watch Boogie Nights, but I don't know if as the ship sailed on Paul Thomas Anderson week at this point.
Here's the thing about all of his. We'd only be able to do 2.
Yeah. That
would take up 5 hours at least. And I don't think any of us just have the time on our hands to do that.
All right.
No.
Okay. So I think at this point, maybe during winter break we'll just do.
I was going to say So I guess we'll call this the end of Summer of Filmmakers.
At least now.
It's been an interesting ride, but I think we will continue to do filmmakers that we have an interest in, so we can have themed weeks.
Kind of fitting because I think we actually started Summer Filmmakers Week when it was still spring.
Yeah.
Did we do that?
Yes.
Sure. Alrighty then. So I don't know. It's a case. I guess what we've learned in all of this, that there's a lot more highly regarded filmmakers we don't like.
That's very strange.
To me, like I was excited. I was like, oh boy, I'm going to watch a whole bunch of filmmakers I have little to no exposure of. Oh, I'm having so much fun, and I don't know how that happened.
Well, at least we know.
Although I think one thing I really want to review is maybe trash Rogue One.
Oh.
Maybe.
Okay, Rogue One. If we're going to go on the full tangent, Rogue One just doesn't look like a movie.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Like, here's the thing. Well, granted, maybe it'll be good.
Maybe it will.
Maybe.
We sound like.
And then the other movie that I think we should talk, the other new release movie that we should talk about is La La Land.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, that looks very interesting.
We need to do that.
We'll watch Whiplash when that comes out because neither of you have seen Whiplash.
Oh yes.
I've just heard only excellent things about Whiplash. I don't know. If anything, I've learned from Summer of Filmmakers that I realize why film conventions exist.
Mm.
Like, if one thing, like, it's also the same thing I've learned from watching Jean-Luc Godard, is that Jean-Luc Godard is all about, like, twisting Hollywood conventions and filmmaking. Mm. But if anything, in him doing so, the only thing I got from it is that now I realize why those conventions exist. Because I find Jean-Luc Godard unwatchable.
Mm.
And, like, so I think, if anything, like, we've seen a bunch of filmmakers who try to twist cinema, and what we've come back to and who we really like are people who hold up most of the conventions and subvert only a few things along the way, like Spielberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Very strange.
Take from that what you will, if anything at all.
What have we learned from this summer? Well, we love Wes Anderson and the Coen brothers. Everyone else we're more ambivalent towards, I guess.
I love Spielberg.
Yeah.
Well, everyone loves Spielberg. You know.
Maybe Warner discounts it.
We love late Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
We love late Charlie Chaplin. Who else did this?
We're rather meh on Edgar Wright.
No, here's the thing. After watching Sausage Party, I have a lot more respect for Edgar Wright. Here's the thing about it. Edgar Wright, if you could...
Finally.
The problem with Edgar Wright, because we were comparing him... The way I was being forced to look at Edgar Wright is a way you're not supposed to look at him through. You're supposed to look at, like, here's modern comedy. It's all shit. Here's what Edgar Wright's doing. It's okay.
You're okay. You're finally getting the point of Edgar Wright, then.
Well, the problem is, like, because we didn't we do Coen Brothers right before that?
I think so.
Yes.
Coen Brothers right before that's like the completely wrong way to go off. That's the completely wrong way to go into Edgar Wright. Like, after watching Sausage Party, going, oh wait, subtlety, cinematics that aren't creepy. I get it.
Well,
although I did learn something else as well. I really like Simon Pegg.
Everyone loves Simon Pegg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I did finally see Cafe Society.
Oh, did you like it?
I enjoyed it. It's fine.
It's a good palate cleanser.
It is, especially for this year.
Exactly.
Also, although that movie has so many medium wide shots in it, and I was also watching it on a rather small movie theater screen, and I was like towards the back of the theater, so it felt like I was just watching the whole movie on like a very small television. Like, the cinematography combined with my distance from the screen and the size of the screen was all very, I don't know.
No,
but
it looked great in the AMC we saw.
Yeah. I mean, I think after that, I'm kind of sold. I'd like to see more Woody Allen movies.
We will get there.
That,
I want to see Midnight in Paris.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe some other, like, 70s, 80s Woody Allen.
I've been meaning to see Hannah and Her Sisters forever, and I also really want to see Husbands and Wives, but...
Yeah, Husbands and Wives is one I have on my list.
All right, so next week, Summer of Filmmakers is officially over. Next week, we're back to just general fuckery with Singing in the Rain and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Whimsy!
How interesting.
Because I got a golden ticket. I got a golden ticket.
Have we all seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Yes,
I think so.
Is that the first time that's happened? We've just all seen something?
Maybe. I don't know. I would just want to revisit it because I've been meaning to, and it's timely. So,
yes.
All right. Well, we will be back next week, provided we don't collapse under our own despair.
That is true.
So that's...
Reed, what are you doing?
We're back. We're back to the promised land of asking Reed what the fuck the noise is.
What? He's rubbing his ID card across the computer screen.
Trying to clean it. That doesn't work, Reed. I've tried it.
Also, this is not the moment.
See, but this is a touch screen, and the hanky affects the touch screen. Plus, I left it.
Oh, so you're doing this on my iPad?
No, I'm doing this on my computer.
Oh, his computer has a touch
Oh, your
screen.
computer has a touch screen.
It's one of those.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Yes, I'm cleaning off the filth, metaphorically, of Hitchcock's Vertigo, but...
Yay.
There you go. Don't let anything get in your way. Homework or podcast otherwise.
Yeah.
Or even why they hate Coit Tower. It's like, that's like, well, like, what do you mean? It's a San Francisco icon. You live there. Embrace it.